the garden going all the way down, the roundabout with Mr. Marquis of Pombal, Liberties Avenue, and then the river and the other bank of the river. So take a look here to the right hand side. It's one of the best views of the city. Then you have a hill with trees. That's where you have the castle, what we call the St. George's Castle. Yeah. Then you have this fountain, this sculpture. Do you know what it represents, this sculpture here to the right hand side? It's a penis.
Penis?
Yeah, it's a penis, yes.
No video, no video.
No, that's not. Those are not my words. Those are the sculpture words. Okay, he is the one who is going to explain it like that. To the left, you have the Motherhood by Botero, the Colombian artist. Look at, always does the fat figures. The penis, well, we asked to this sculpture, is called João Cutileiro, is quite well known at an international level. We asked to him to do a sculpture of the 25th of April. 25th of April for us, it's the revolution that puts an end to the dictatorship. So it's the 25th of April, 1974. So we call it the Red Carnation Revolution. So the man did that sculpture and said, look at the strength of men that did the revolution. Okay, no one really liked it, but it was already paid, so we kept it like that.
Bem, eu não sei daqueles anos. Nós não combinamos nada, né? Devemos pedir facção.
Se vamos por. Se não vamos já à torre. Primeiro à torre. Passamos em frente.
Não é isso ou não?
Passamos ali com o comboio logo lá.
Eu acho que sim.
É, muito bem.
Nós não combinamos nada. Pronto. Já não há nada. Se é para a torre tem que ser por aí, não é?
Sim, se for já para a torre.
É, torre, maior a torre, mansão. Será que eles vieram ao contrário? Hã? Vieram de lá para cá?
Eu acho que eles estão a fazer como nós, porque eu quando virei à direita lá em cima
Espetáculo,
e
né?
aqui ao fundo
Viu?
vi um carro da frota a seguir em frente. Eu como não vi mais nenhum sem ser aquele.
So as I was telling you, here you have maybe a more modern Lisbon. It's a Lisbon of the 20th century because we are slightly further away from the river, okay? Because we always built along the river, but until there was an earthquake followed by the tsunami, so then we thought, okay, maybe it's not the brightest idea to continue so close to the water, so that's when we spread the city towards the northern part. So that's what you see here. This garden, as I was telling you, it's a meeting place for the locals too. So for example, if there's a big football championship like Euro Cup or World Cup, they can set big screens and people can watch the games here in the park. Also the books market. In the month of April, May, we have the books market, so all little wooden booths. Last week Pope Francis was here in this garden. Then the mass on Sunday, that was in a different place in the eastern part of Lisbon, outside the city. But we use this park for many events, so it becomes also a meeting place for the locals. So we are back to this beautiful roundabout of Mr. Marquis of Pombal. So the garden, you see it from the bottom now, here to the right hand side. And as I was telling you, the modern buildings on top, Four Seasons, Intercontinental, and then the thin building, it's the one of Cristiano Ronaldo. So Mr. Marquis of Pombal, here to the left. If you look, the lower part of the monument has other sculptures, so those are other allegorical scenes of things that he did for Portugal. So for example, you have a lady in bronze sitting, and behind her there's a Greek temple. So she's the Greek goddess colonies. So slowly they were shaping the minds of the Portuguese, and he didn't want that. So he's going to do a law, he's going to go against the Vatican, and he's going to expel the Jesuits from Portugal. Then he's going to call teachers from all over Europe with no connection to the church to be the professors of our university. Okay, on this side you also have the animals, and they are carrying barrels. Another thing that this gentleman did, he created the first wine region
there's an
in
alliance
the
on there.
world. Okay, first legislation to establish a land just to produce wine. Okay, so it's the Douro Valley in the north of Portugal, where still nowadays we do the port wine. Okay, so it's considered the oldest wine region. No one really had this idea just to protect the land to produce wine. So he was really a man ahead of his time, as I was telling you.
Just mention that. Oh yeah, because that's my country.
Okay.
Apart from
You're going
Europe.
to see here on the corner the building of Allianz. With this big sign here to the left hand side.
That's only brand. That's only advertised.
Beautiful sign, huh?
Very beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So now we're going to head towards the westernmost neighborhood of in Morocco, in the north of Africa, 1415. What happens? We need more land because we are a tiny country. As I was telling you, we are a very small country, and we needed more land. We just needed more land, even for farming. So we only have a border with Spain. So there were only two options: or we were going to fight Spain, our neighbors, or we're going to set sail and discover new land. So we believe that it was easier to just set sail and discover the new world. Start in the beginning exploring the African coastline. Eventually Bartolomeu Dias is going to reach South Africa, so he's going to cross the Cape of Good Hope in 1488, and then 10 years later Vasco da Gama, that circles completely the African continent and gets to India. So he's going to put these worlds together. He's going to become like a father of globalization, because he's going to put these two worlds together. This avenue here bears the name of the navigator that discovered Brazil. So Brazil was discovered by a Portuguese navigator called Pedro Álvares Cabral. We still study in school that Mr. Pedro discovered Brazil a little bit by luck, because he was on his way to go to India, okay, a little bit far from his destination, but the African coastline was very dangerous, so it was a lot easier for them to look at the stars. They started to navigate looking at the stars, so they would go in the middle of the ocean and then they would return to cross directly the Cape of Good Hope. So that was what he was doing, avoiding the African coastline when there's a storm, and by luck he discovers Brazil. Okay, so if you look here in front of us, this little roundabout, you have a gentleman with a flag. Look here to the left, so it's Mr. Pedro, and behind you have the missionary, so dedicated to the discovery of Brazil. Nowadays, of course, we have other theories, okay, because we know now that we signed Lisbon, you have here trees that are over 100 years old. And if you look here to the left hand side, the beautiful church, it's called the Basilica of Estrela, the Basilica of the Star. It was built in 1790. It was built by a Portuguese queen, Mary I. She was married for a couple, many times funerals or weddings of actors, politicians, singers. They take place in this basilica. This hill that we are crossing, it's a more residential hill. We are getting a little bit further away from the city center, so here there's not as much traffic, noise, there are a lot less tourists, so it becomes a very elegant neighborhood to live in Lisbon. Expensive, part of this hill, parallel avenue on the left, it's called the neighborhood of Lapa, and it is a neighborhood of embassies. Okay, many embassies are in this hill. And now we're going to go all apartments of the 40s and 50s. It's when this neighborhood started to develop. For example, to the left hand side, these ones in pink and white, they are from the 50s, and you're going to see the staircase of access and the decoration with tiles. Take a look here to the left hand side. So you have the fisherman and the baby. Then here to the left hand side you have the traditional houses, the bell towers, so the pinks, the yellows, the blues. Then here to the left hand side, take a look, the traditional activities, the donkeys carrying carrots, the children are playing. And here to the left you have the traditional boats, the fishermen. The orange ones here, these are more modern tiles, but still tiles. So we still use a lot the tiles. It is maybe the most important decorative art in Portugal. Another great place for you to see modern tiles, it's in our metro stations. Okay, we have, for example, the red line that was built in the 90s. All metro stations are decorated with tiles. More tiles here to the left hand side. This was made a couple of years ago, blue and white. So we still use a lot the tiles. So we are getting to the bank of the River Tagus. You're going to see some more tiles that date back to 2001, so already 21st century, with the rainbow. So many times it's like a busy day, lots of traffic entering the city. Well, people can look at the tiles, and they are colorful. Very beautiful. If you look in front of us, you're going to see on the other bank there's the big column, and there's the statue of Christ with the arms wide open. Okay, a little bit like the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. It's a copy of that one in Rio. So our bishop, the Bishop of Lisbon, did a trip to Rio. He saw the original one, loved it. So when he came back, he did a vow to God. If Portugal didn't enter World War II, we were going to build the same statue. So you have to understand that we never entered World War II. We were a neutral country. We were actually seen as a safe haven. So people that could escape the war, people that had the money to escape the war, they would come to live in Lisbon and in our coastline. If you look here to the left hand side, this big white pavilion, this was a warehouse to keep the codfish. Codfish, one of our most traditional dishes. Nowadays we call it the Oriental Museum. So it's a museum with temporary exhibitions, and it shows the connection between Portugal and many Asian countries, the mixture of cultures, especially with India, China and Japan. One of our symbols, our beautiful bridge. Okay, so the bridge, it looks like the Golden Gate Bridge or the Bay Bridge. This bridge was built by the same company, the American Steel Corporation. It's the same model. We are a city with wind. We are a city with the possibility of earthquakes. So we thought that this would be our best option as a bridge. And it was inaugurated in 1966. So 1966, we were under a dictatorship. So the bridge, when it was inaugurated, it was called Salazar Bridge, the name of our dictator. Nowadays we call it 25th of April Bridge. So 25th of April, it's the date of the revolution that puts the end to the dictatorship. So 25th of April 1974. If you look to the right hand side, you'll see some street art. You'll see the beautiful paintings there to the right hand side. This is our hipster Lisbon. It's a more alternative Lisbon. Pretty much two avenues with these old buildings that are former factories, and the buildings, they were abandoned. So many artisans and artists, they established their studios there in the former factories. So we call that neighborhood the LX factory. Okay, here to the left hand side, the warehouses, the orange warehouses, they were the docks, the warehouses of the docks, now also restaurants and clubs. And take a look there to the left hand side, you see the bridge, you see on the other bank, as I was telling you, the statue of Christ with the arms wide open. And this bridge has two levels. The upper part, cars, trucks, buses, and the lower part, it's for the railways. Okay, by foot you can only do it in the marathon. So tomorrow, as I was telling you, the marathon starts on the other bank. So all the athletes, they are going to cross the bridge by foot. So it's one of the highlights of our marathon. So you can see we are entering the neighborhood of Belém, completely different. Here you have a lot more space, you have these beautiful gardens, people exercise along the bank of the river. It is also a very touristic neighborhood for us, for the Portuguese families, because there's lots of space, children can play, little cafes, museums, temporary exhibitions. So on the weekends we also have lots of Portuguese families that come here to the Belém district. If you look to the right hand side, you are going to see this yellow building. The building is very long. It is 400 meters long. Inside you don't have any walls. It's one single open space, because this was the place where we used to make and stretch the ropes of the vessels. Okay, so very long, 400 meters long. Nowadays we use it for temporary exhibition, so every 3-4 months there's a different exhibition. And we are entering this beautiful neighborhood of Belém. Translation of Belém, Bethlehem. Okay, it's the same word, because as I was telling you, we believe that we were on a Christian quest with the sailors spreading in the different continents, with the missionaries, the new parishes. If you look here to the left hand side, you can see that people can walk on top of this white building. It's called the MAT. MAT means Museum of Art, Architecture and Technology. It was built in 2016, so it's one of our new museums. Then the orange building here to the left hand side, a former thermoelectric plant. Nowadays it's the Electricities Museum. So also many, for example, school trips come here to the Electricities Museum. Then here to the right hand side you are going to see the white building, the big white building. It's written there, the National Museum of Coaches. Coaches, the old carriages, all vehicles pulled by horses. We have a collection between the 16th and the 19th centuries. So the coaches, well, some of them are in gilt woodwork. You can see the velvets, the embroideries. It is considered the best coaches museum in the world at the level of the number of vehicles and how well preserved they are. If you look to the right hand side, take a look to the right hand side, the pink building, that's the official residence of our president. Look there, you see the flag there, the green flag in the main facade. That green flag shows that the president is there at the moment. Okay, so the president, he didn't install there, he doesn't live actually there, he stayed at home. He lives in our coastline, but they are always going to hang there the flag showing when the president is in the building. Okay, this area here with these gardens, this is going to be the finish line tomorrow, okay, for the marathon. So you're going to see lots of tents, and they are preparing everything for tomorrow. If you look to the left hand side, you can see the monument to the discovery. So this monument was built in 1960, the shape of a vessel. The man that is there in the pro, it is Henry the Navigator, and behind him you have all the people that contributed in some way for the discoveries. There to the right hand side you have the beautiful church with the white dome, that is the Jerónimos monastery. And the Jerónimos monastery, it's a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. It was built in 1501, but it took 100 years to finish the works. If you look to the right hand side, you see this square building, a lot more modern. The rectangular building, it's called the CCB. The CCB, it's the Cultural Center of Belém. It was built in 1993. And it was built in marble. Everything that you see here to the right hand side was made in marble. So it was quite controversial. We built, well, in the project we had 5 pavilions. We just built 3, and then the money ended. Okay, so we left it like that with just the 3 pavilions. So inside you have an auditorium, They do shows like ballet, opera, concerts, and there is a private collection, a contemporary and modern art museum inside. Then here behind these beautiful pine trees, you're going to see the Tower of Belém. Okay, another highlight of the city. So the Tower of Belém, it's a little fortress by the water. It was built between 1550, much the same crosses that you would see in the sails of our vessels. It was a way to affirm the power of the king, and it's a particular artistic style that we call the Manueline style. In the beginning, very beginning of the garden, here in front of us in the Cuna, you're also going to see a sculpture of